Alrighty, we're live. So I'm here with Ranting Monkey, who's the first one that brought this memo to my attention, and thought I'd ask some questions to learn a little more about this. And sadly, I'm going into this a little more blind than I wanted to because I have yet to read the thing. Just busy working.
That's okay. I've read it quite extensively.
Figured so. I saw that your video come up and it was discussing it. So
Yeah.
how did you first
the hashtag came up. Released the memo like 2 weeks ago now, and I just happened to be up late at night. And I was streaming with someone. Oh, I was streaming with Irate Bear and Drunken Uncle that night. And it was a very unusual situation. They were up real late, and somebody just happened to mention the hashtag. So I went and looked at it, and the response that we were getting from congressmen, they were telling us, this is worse than Watergate. People are going to go to jail for this. It's going to drastically change, the face of the FBI and the Justice Department. And for them to come out and be so as direct as they were with those kind of accusations, that told me, this must say something important. So then we waited 2 weeks, and we found out Monday they were going to release it. And so as soon as I could, Friday when it came out, I was all over it.
Is that about when you released your first video discussing that Fox News article?
The first one was when the hashtag released the memo came out.
Yeah, because I caught that one. I just woke up, and I think I just woken up. I started driving. I don't know how much you've known about my page, but I drive a truck for a living, so I often play videos from those I subscribe to as I take off.
Okay.
But yours was the first one that came up, so I played it, and it started catching my interest. And then I also watched part of that stream you did with Undoomed that night, listening to it, and it was the fact that you pointed out how Fox was the only one that covered it, and the fact that every other news media outlet ignored it, that really caught my attention, because mainly due to the fact that they have been against Trump since the very beginning, haven't even given him benefit of the doubt, and whereas Fox will sometimes act like he's God and does nothing wrong.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt that Fox News has its political slant the same way that MSNBC does. But I've in my lifetime, I'm an old guy. I'm 43. In my lifetime, I've never seen a president treated the way Trump is. And he brings part of that on himself. He's kind of a shit poster when it comes to Twitter and stuff. But the way that you had congressmen on the floor of the House making accusations that people were going to get fired over what was in this memo, and the fact that nobody else in the press except Fox News paid attention to that was just, what are you guys doing? That's not something that happens very often. You might have, members on the House say things that might be a little controversial, but to come out and say people at the FBI and the Department of Justice are going to get fired over this, that is a pretty direct statement for them to come out and say, and for the media to ignore that was just mind-boggling. It made no sense.
Yeah, it's my thought exactly. So you've read it extensively. Like I said, I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet. How many parts of this were actually causing problems?
How do you mean causing problems? Like, well, what is the main issue with it?
I'm trying to think of word in my thought. How many parts of this memo are concerning? I'd say.
Pretty much from start to finish, it is. This is something that has to be said about this memo. There's a lot of talk about it clearing Trump and vindicating Trump, and it doesn't do that really at all, because with the stuff that's in there, there's the idea of the poisoned fruit with what this memo is.
You're rebutting a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that. Let's see if I can fix that here. Sorry about that, guys. Give me just a moment. What do I was recording not long before this. I have a lot of stuff open, so give me just a second.
Alrighty.
All right, let's see if that's any
Sorry
better.
about that. There's kids here.
Oh, no, that's fine. Anyway, there were a lot of people talking about this where they were going to say this is going to vindicate Trump, and it doesn't do that really at all. What it does do is show that the FBI and the Department of Justice were using the Steele dossier, which they knew was a partisan document. The Steele dossier came out, I want to say September of last year, maybe, of 2016. And what it was a salacious load of garbage. There was nothing verified in it. In the Nunes memo, they actually refer to it as minimally corroborated. So, the DOJ and the FBI, for a warrant like this, it requires a signature from either the director or the deputy director of the FBI, and either the attorney general or a deputy attorney general. So each one of these warrants that were signed off on had those signatures. That's why it comes to the point of, one of these guys is going to get fired. And the reason that the congressman was saying somebody should be fired over this is because they used this and did not tell the judge that it was opposition research. For those of you who don't know what opposition research is, it's quite common in politics. During a campaign, there are people specifically paid to dig up dirt on the other side. And I don't really have a problem with that. The issue here is that Steele did no real research. He just grabbed whatever's garbage he could find and threw it all together in a report that is so far turned out to be largely false. And I only say largely false because we don't know if any of it's actually been corroborated yet. So anyway, they take this memo that is quite obviously flawed and politically motivated, and they take it to a judge in a secret court. The FISA courts are secret. Everything that goes on there is classified. So they take this to a secret court, and then they open an investigation and we get all these salacious headlines about, oh, Trump being investigated, and that happens during the election. So essentially what you have is the FBI and the Department of Justice being used as a political tool to help the Hillary campaign. And that is a major bombshell. That is what all of the headlines should be. And instead, all the headlines are, oh, this doesn't prove Donald Trump was innocent. Well, no, it doesn't. But it is very concerning.
Yeah, definitely. Because, are there laws, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't there laws against departments like that collaborating to help a presidential campaign that they don't like?
And see, that's part of the problem, is that we can't prove that the people involved, the ones who signed off on the memo, people like Rod Rosenstein, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, A.G. Yates, we can't prove that any of these people knew that was what was going on. What we can do is point to things like there's a guy named Orr, I forget his first name. He works at the Justice Department, and he worked for Rosenstein, who was an attorney general, one of the attorney generals who signed off on the warrant. And Yates, I forget Yates' first name, but Deputy Attorney General Yates. These people signed off on these warrants knowing things about Christopher Steele. But Orr, who worked for them, his wife worked for the same company Steele worked for, doing the same job Steele was doing. Literally, her job was to look up dirt on Donald Trump. And to have him involved in this at all is suspect. What should happen here is the only one who's I believe really left is Rosenstein, because McCabe stepped down the other day. They need to be fired, period, for their part in this. But I don't think we'll ever be able to prove they knew what they were doing, that they were specifically helping the Hillary campaign. Although it seems quite obvious if you just look at what was going on.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know somebody needs to get fired over this shit. Do you know of something I could look up to try and bring up the actual document?
Yeah, just search full text Nunes menu or memo, and Nunes is Nunes.
Here, let me get a. We got the main tab.
Yeah, the way that the memo is laid out, it's I don't think it was written the best because they should have listed their charges a little more coherently, I think. But
Could you spell that
everything
again?
Nunes.
Open up.
Robert Doe says bullshit based on bullshit is bullshit. Yeah, absolutely. It was bad enough when the press wasn't paying attention to this, when it was just people talking about the memo. Now that we actually have the memo and they're still ignoring it, is just ridiculous. Seems like Monkey had a Freudian slip with menu. Oh, did I say menu? Whoops, I meant memo.
Yeah, we've.
Yeah, the first part of the memo, there's a because the memo itself is 4 pages long. It's actually 3 pages and then 1 paragraph on page 4. But there's also 2 pages at the top from Speaker Ryan, where he's explaining why this was released, saying it was done in the public interest. And after reading it, I absolutely agree. This should have been released. But then I'm pretty
Personally, if you ask me, if the Democrats, especially with the likes of Pelosi and Schumer, start saying that we don't need to see it, that means we need to see it.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk.
Okay, am I presenting right now?
I don't have the page. I can't play the video as I'm watching. Let me see. And oh, yep. Looks like you're presenting. There we go.
Okay. I just want to make sure at the very least you can see it. I'm pretty sure the viewers can see it.
Yeah, what you're looking at right there is the part from Paul Ryan where he's talking about why it's being released and giving the background where it's okay to release this with certain authority. But yeah, as we were coming into this, there were a lot of Democrats talking about how this would harm national security. And if you read this, there is no real reason to think that national security would be upset by this at all. The Democrats had the chance to read this memo before we all did, because the Intelligence Committee voted to release it to the full House, which was done entirely on party lines. Excuse me. Which that's also fucking amazing. Why I understand if they didn't want to release it to the public, saying that it's classified information, but releasing it to your fellow congressman, that part, I'm like, okay, what are you trying to hide?
Yeah, that's what concerns me. That's usually what makes me want them to release certain things. Is like the biggest ones I saw that were freaking out about it were Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and those two I don't trust worth a damn, because they are always doing something really shady. Well, they're always pinning the blame of something on the president for no reason other than they don't like him. And
Adam Schiff was also making a big deal about it. And if you don't know who he is, he's mentioned in the memo here. He is the ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee. He really didn't want this. Adam Schiff. He didn't want this released either. Oh wait, is he? No, he's not mentioned in the memo. I'm sorry. He's mentioned in the story that I did my video on. He was really against this. He was one of the loudest voices screaming that it's going to hurt national security. And there's really nothing to show national security in danger here. He also said in an op-ed that he wrote that the DOJ and the FBI would be unwilling to share stuff with Congress because of this, and that's not really something that can happen because it's their goddamn job to answer to Congress.
Okay, I'll go through this in just a second.
The Jack Cochran in chat.
Check the chat real quick to see if they can hear you okay, because I hear you roboting, but...
Oh. I'm not noticing any. Guys, are you hearing any roboting?
Okay, there you are.
Yeah, they're saying I sound fine, so I apologize if you're having trouble. So, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it as best as I can. This is probably just my computer.
Sure.
Anyway, JNFBI sought and received a FISA probable cause order, not under Title 8. What's Title 8?
I'm not sure, and what it says there's actually that it wasn't under Title 8. Isn't that what it says? Not under Title 8.
Yeah, it says what the fuck was that?
Oh. And it's not under Title 7. That's what that says there.
Oh, yeah, 7. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Not received a FISA on October 21st, 2016. DOJ and FBI sought and received a FISA probable cause order, not under Title 7. So what's Title 7?
I'm not sure about. What this is saying, though, is that this was authorized under the FISA Act, which, by the way, was just renewed by Congress the other day. And FISA is a program that allows a secret court to hand out warrants so Americans can be spied on if they're suspected to be working with a foreign government.
So is that I'm not totally familiar with that. Is that just off the top of my head? That sounds like something they made up just so they can charge Trump with collusion if they find him even speaking in Putin's name.
No.
Is that along the lines?
This goes back to 9/11 and overreach of the government by pretending that they were going to be spying on Americans because we might be talking to Al Qaeda. It has been a very controversial program since it started, and every time it gets renewed, they do it very quietly because it's not a very popular program. Largely because it's not only is it a Fourth Amendment violation, the courts are entirely secret, and you can make an argument for national security for that, but if you're going to be violating the Fourth Amendment, it should be at least a little more public. You should know. You could be under a FISA warrant and never know, ever. And that's disturbing, especially when you read how little evidence it takes to get one of these warrants. In this, one of the things that they talk about, the media that's been talking about this, is that this shows that the investigation wasn't started because of the Carter Page FISA, which is what this is about, the Carter Page FISA warrant, that it was started because of Papadopoulos.
Like this whole thing or just this section?
The whole thing. What this section is talking about. Do you want to go section by section? We can do that real quick.
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and do that just so I can get a better understanding of this.
Sure. This first part here is just explaining what the FISA thing is and who all signed off on it. The FBI, DOJ obtained an initial FISA warrant for Carter Page, and then 3 renewals. It points out that the applications require either the director or deputy director of the FBI plus the AG or the deputy AGs. And there's really nothing in here that there's really nothing on this page that's salacious. So scroll down to page 2. That's where it starts getting, that's where it starts getting interesting.
Okay. This page?
Yep, here we go. This is where they're talking about so in the case of Carter Page, the government had at least 4 independent opportunities before the FISC, that's the FISA court, to accurately provide an accounting of the relevant facts. This goes into what was going on with the Steele dossier. Points out that the Steele dossier was paid for partially by the DNC and partially by the Hillary Clinton campaign. and that it ran through a law firm called Perkins Coie, and the research firm Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS is the one who actually paid Steele, but they were paid through the DNC and Hillary Clinton. It goes on to talk about.
Sure. Quick question before we finish that. Is there something I can do to possibly try and fix the audio? Because it's like that one robot bad enough it actually jumbled up a lot of words on my end.
The only thing you could do would actually make it so you can't display this anymore. What you would do is turn down your bandwidth. As you're looking at right next to where it says Google there, and then there's the orange square. You go over to the one that looks like a cell phone bar, and you turn that down. But what it's going to do is make it so you can't present video.
Mm-hmm.
And you just turn it down.
And turning off my camera?
Yep, it would turn off right next to the camera button on the right.
Here, let me open the screen fully so I can see what you're looking at. That didn't help. Okay, turn that off. All right.
Do you see where the phone is? Where you would hang up the call?
Yeah, now I see it. Yeah.
2 to the left of that, you would just turn down your bandwidth, probably put it in the middle.
Wait, what do I click on after I find the call button?
Okay. 2 icons to the left. The one that looks kind of like a cell phone reception bar.
Oh, that one.
Yep, and you just turn that down. And what that does is it frees it up so you aren't using as many resources. And it like I said, it'll probably turn off your camera. You won't be able to present anymore, but you should be able to hear better.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a problem turning off my camera. I'm just using my avatar, so.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Anyway, what that part was going over is that the Department of Justice and the Attorney General never, and the FBI, and I should mention them too, never once went to this judge and went, oh, by the way, the information that we are presenting to you came from a political hack. And that is important because the whole idea is that you'll see this in the media if you read it, that Steele was a trusted source, a good source for the FBI. And this is based on his work on FIFA, the International Soccer Association, or whatever it is. He was involved in uncovering some of the scandal that happened there. He was a source for the FBI during that, which is fine. Okay, he was a good source for you once, but they knew at the time, they knew when they presented this to the judge that this had been provided or had been paid for and was done for political purposes. Now, being paid for and done for political purposes doesn't necessarily mean it's not good information. Turns out in this case, it wasn't good information, but it should have been enough that the FBI went, you know what? We need to verify some of this before we take it to FISA. And Andrew McCabe, I've mentioned him before. He was the deputy director of the FBI. He still technically is. He's retiring at the end of March, but he stepped aside. He stepped aside the day it was announced that this memo would be coming out. He has testified before Congress and said that without the Steele dossier, they never would have went for a warrant on this. And when you put that together with the fact that they knew it was a partisan hit piece and that they didn't verify it, it paints a very ugly picture.
Okay. So is that all what this page talks about here?
Yeah, that's what most of that page talks about. The third or the second page of the actual dossier. The third page gets into a little bit more of what Steele did. There's he had talked with Orr, and it's an actual quote that's listed there. So this is testimony from somewhere where he said he didn't want Donald Trump to be president and he would do what he could to make sure it didn't happen. And again, these are things that were known to the FBI and the Justice Department when this information was presented to the judge. I don't think you can make a valid argument that the judge would have still given this warrant if the judge knew that this came from political opposition and hadn't actually been researched.
Mm-hmm. Still admitted to his was against then candidate Trump when Steele said he was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. Okay, this Bruce Orr guy, name sounds familiar, but I don't think he's been mentioned very much. Like, was he active in the news at all?
No, not
like,
really.
Covered in the news?
Not really. He's a more minor player. He worked for the Attorney General's office. I forget his exact title, but yeah, he worked under Yates and Rosenstein.
Then Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr.
There you go. Yeah, so he was an associate deputy. So one stage under the people who are most likely going to end up fired over this. If there's any justice at all, they'll at least get fired.
Okay, yeah, I actually misread. That's what confused me. I misread this. I thought it was saying that this before Steele was terminated as a source. Because it said that Steele was terminated, maintained contact with Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr, and I thought it said that Orr was desperate that Donald Trump not be elected as president, but it said that Steele was.
Steele, yeah. Steele was actually paid by the FBI when he brought this information to whichever contact he brought it to. Yeah, they put him on their payroll. So he was being paid by our government, by the DNC, and by Hillary's campaign pretty much at the same time. He ended up getting fired by the FBI because his information was shit. And the information that was shit is the same stuff they used to get this warrant.
Makes sense. Crap, I had a question and I just lost it. Remind me again, I can't remember if we covered it or not. What specific information was he bringing to them? Was it just random information that they specify in this memo, or is it just...
It's not specified in the memo, but do you remember Pissgate?
Do I remember what?
Pissgate. It's
wasn't that something about him having a hooker that did urinating tricks during sexual activities or something like that?
The allegation was that Donald Trump paid several hookers to pee on him in a hotel room in Russia. I'm gonna try something real quick. I'm gonna do me a favor, talk to the chat for just a few minutes. I'll go ahead and stop the screen share for a minute. I'm gonna go to my truck. I'm gonna get the headphones, and then I'm gonna open my second account on my phone. All right. Let's see, chat. So will anybody be going to prison because of all of this? Asked Alan Poe. If there's any justice, definitely people will be going to jail for this. While we, again, can't prove direct collusion between the FBI, the AG, and the Clinton campaign, reasonable doubt doesn't exist in my mind. I don't think you can't look at what happened and go, okay, the only explanation that would make that possible, that they didn't know what they were doing, that this wasn't a conscious effort on their part, would be if they were complete morons. And they might be a lot of things, but they're not morons. XGC Scrappy says that there should be treason charges being brought up. Yeah. In a perfect world, yes, because this continued beyond when Trump became president. You already have, would you call it election fraud? Probably, yeah, I would. And a whole host of other charges. But once he became president and they are actively, illegally tapping them, and we can make the argument, well, they had a warrant to tap. Yeah, but the warrant was obtained under false pretenses. Let's see, what else do we have here? Was this the same Steele as Remington Steele? No, Remington Steele actually would have done things right. This is something I say in the video. Just because Steele was paid by Clinton and the DNC doesn't mean he had to have bad information. The problem is he does have bad information. Him being paid isn't the big issue. All that does is ties this all together. That the FBI didn't investigate this on their own more before they decided to take this to the FISA court is fucking insane. Excuse me. There's literally no reason they couldn't have done some more investigation. Yeah, exactly. XGC Scrappy just said they knew it was bad information. They absolutely did. The memo even states that this line just makes my fucking head spin. Minimally corroborated. And the only corroboration we have for the Steele memo that anyone knows of is the Yahoo article. And the Yahoo article was sourced by Steele. Steele fed the information to Michael Isikoff, however you say his fucking name, who wrote the story about it. And then the fucking FBI takes this story that was written by Isikoff with Steele as the source and used it to corroborate Steele's fucking dossier. It's fucking mind-blowing that they did no goddamn research into this. And there's a few articles I've read. CNN has been pushing this real hard. There's prosecutors going, well, you don't always get the best information or the best witness. This isn't even about getting the best witness. You already know that this person has a partisan agenda. You know that this was paid for to have a partisan agenda. I mean, it's not like they said, hey, we're just curious about Trump. It was literally meant to bring him down. And then you have our government, our fucking government, helping do it. This is the part that is really blowing my mind. This is an investigation into possible influence or illegal influence in the election. And what we're finding out is that the illegal influence was coming from the people who are investigating the possibility of illegal influence. It's fucking, it's moronic on a level that even I sometimes, I cannot handle. It's just that goddamn stupid.
So basically like cops that are investigating a murder that they committed.
Yeah, basically. Do you think Trump will put them to the sword, so to speak? I don't think Trump can. Not just because I think in our political climate right now and with the press the way it is, it would take some huge movement to allow Trump to do that. Because he's being investigated by Mueller, there's not a lot Trump can do. He just can't. Once that investigation is over, yeah, he can put the screws to all of them. The problem then is people be going, oh, it's retaliation. So he's kind of damned if he does, damned if he does here.
That's pretty much everything. That's pretty much how it is with every decision with his presidency. Like I still know people that are pissed off at what he was trying to do with DACA, even though he actually got enough backlash from that on both sides that he turned it over to Congress and said, you want it, you fix it.
Yeah. And
even that wasn't good enough.
There's some talk going on that one of the reasons, because the press is not kind to Trump, and I don't think Trump's perfect. There's plenty he's done that I disagree with, and I did not vote for him. Didn't vote for Hillary either. But I've never seen a president blasted like this. If Donald Trump had done what is being accused here, if this happened under his administration, the press would be out for blood, and rightfully so. My problem here is that they're not. At the very least, the press should be out there going, we have questions about this. And instead they're silent. Or not even silent. They're actually out there defending this memo as some kind of as though it proves that Trump needed to be investigated anyway because of the Papadopoulos thing, which by the way is in the, I want to say it's on the 4th page, which is, there's only one paragraph there. It might be on the 3rd page, last paragraph. I forget which, but it's brought up that the investigation was originally started by whatever the fuck that FBI guy's name was, because of George Papadopoulos. Well, the problem with that is that the guy who did start that investigation got removed from this whole case because of text messages that came out between him and his what's the word I want to use here? I'm trying to be polite. The woman he was having an affair with, where they were basically saying the same thing that we see from Steele in this, where they were desperate not to have him elected, and he actually uses the phrase that they were going to have was it a backup plan? I forget the exact wording, but yeah, it reads like, yeah, we're not going to let Trump be president, and that's fucking. This whole thing is just one shit show that our press should be all over.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think this last paragraph on this last page is what you were talking about with the
Papadopoulos.
I have an Andy Worski type stutter, so it's hard for me to say words like that.
That's all right. I trip over my words all the time. And I can't even blame it on a stutter. That's just me.
I have it doubly as bad. Sometimes I stutter, and sometimes it's also mixed with the fact that I have ADHD. So sometimes I'm just screwed.
Ah, gotcha. So was there anything else you want to know specifically about this memo? And I don't mean to rush, guys. When I set this up with him, this is entirely my fault. I forgot this is Super Bowl Sunday, and we actually kind of do Super Bowl Sunday kind of big here. So I have a very limited time to talk. So was there anything else more specific?
I can't say at the moment, and part of that is my fault too, because I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing.
Oh, sure. But, okay.
I mean, I think we covered a good amount. Let me start presenting it all over the chat. We'll take a couple of questions from the chat. Quick question while I'm working on this. All right, actually, I'll bring that up after we go off air, because I don't want to spoil it for everybody.
Sure.
I got I'll reveal this part. I got a collaboration with Weibo coming up pretty soon.
Oh, that's cool. I love Weebs.
Yeah, she's awesome. Long story short, I don't know if you heard about this Claire chick that's not a very big fan of Andy Worski right now. I'll send you her channel in the DMs. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of hilarious. But she has a video. She has a video where she claims that anti-SJWs want to bring back Jim Crow laws due to the fact that we always speak up against Black Lives Matter. And her arguments are comparing Black Lives Matter to the Martin Luther King movements.
Yeah, not even close to the same thing.
Yeah, that's why I'm going through it. And Weibo's much better at navigating Google than I am. I'm just a truck driver that talks shit, so.
Gotcha, yeah.
She's helping me out with this, but anyway, does anybody in the chat have questions? Attic, what's up? We're just talking about that memo that was recently released.
XGC Scrappy says this is worse than Watergate, way worse. Yes, it is. Watergate, as bad as it was, for those of you who aren't familiar, basically some low-level Republican operatives decided to break into the Democratic headquarters at the Watergate Hotel, and they got caught doing it by a security guard. And this ended up bringing down Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon had nothing to do with the break-in. What he ended up stepping down for was just covering it up. He basically went on TV and admitted he had covered it up, and that forced him to resign. That was all a Republican operation. That was just bad party tricks, for lack of a better word. This is the government actually being part of that. And that is mind-blowing.
Is Papadopoulos... Is that due with the weird name, A Kingdom and a King's Show?
Oh, Papadopoulos?
Probably.
No, but it is fun to say.
Anyway, you might have covered this. If I missed it, I apologize. Your personal opinion, what effects do you think this is actually going to have on the country, and what do you think should be the concern of the citizens that are kind of coming to this as blind as I did?
No. It depends on if people actually wake up and give a shit about it. They have the entire news media telling them it doesn't matter, and it's easy to look at this and go, yeah, this doesn't exonerate Trump, because it doesn't. But that's not the point of the memo. That's not the bombshell of the memo. And if people pay attention to it, hopefully it'll get rid of the FISA court, because that is just horrible. And hopefully it'll make people wake up and realize that there was a lot of shady shit done under the last president, and part of the reason he got away with so much of it is because the press was not critical of him at all. I mean, we had the IRS scandal pretty early in his term, and this was the whether he knew it or not, his administration was using the IRS to target political opponents. And that is not something the government should ever be used for, period. And he got away with it. There was nothing done about that scandal. And if anything, I hope people wake up and realize there's a reason that we should have an independent press. A press that, whether they have biases or not, do their best not to put them into their reporting, because they do have an important job. And if that means that we have to stop paying attention to the mainstream media and people start paying more attention to alternative media, then so be it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's something I'm trying to set up myself. I came up with this idea just partly inspired by Andy's recent debates.
Mm-hmm.
And also because my wife and I are on opposite sides of the political spectrum. She's more liberal. I'm pretty conservative. We've had a lot of arguments about the president. It's been a mixture of she's just in a mood where everything he does is bad because she doesn't like him. She's thought reasonably on him, just still didn't like what he did. And we've even had, you should know this being married, we've had those arguments where we just wanted to piss each other off because we were already in a bad mood.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And, yeah, we had we've had these for a while, and we've paid attention to the media enough to see how much they're covering, and like, tell me how much you agree with this. Have you ever heard of this guy, Graham Allen?
I'm not familiar.
If you check out Facebook, look up the Daily Rants guy. That's what he runs it mostly on Facebook. He posts some on YouTube, but mostly on Facebook. He's pretty entertaining, but he was doing an interview. He was doing a live interview with Tomi Lahren one time on her old show, and he had made the comment that the fact that the media cries wolf at everything Trump does is going to get us supporters to the point where when he actually fucks up, we're not going to believe him. Like, would you agree with that?
I think that's definitely a possibility. At this point, there's not much more they can blame him for, and they do it so. Yeah, crying wolf is a great analogy there, because yeah, that's what's been happening. And the difference I do see, where you're still going to have the left who will scream about it loud enough that it'll get a lot of coverage no matter what he does. So his supporters, I don't think most of his supporters believe anything bad said about him anyway, because it goes both ways. That you have your diehards on both sides. There are things Trump has done wrong so far, and the problem that the press is making is that they spend way too much time on utter nonsense when there are legitimate things to talk about. You can disagree with Trump on policy. You can point out to places where he's flip-flopped, or where he's I mean, it's petty, but you can point out where he exaggerates like his numbers, because the most watched State of the Union of all time. There's legitimate stuff to complain about, and the problem is they just complain about everything, even shit that we're pretty sure they know is fake anyway. So nobody knows what's real or not.
Yeah, exactly. But like what we were thinking about with that, I'm trying to find one more leftist-leaning person to balance out my wife, and I also got another YouTube buddy of mine, Sir Conservatarian, which everybody in the chat, and even you, Monkey, if you want to check it out, I recommend you check out his channel. He's doing some pretty cool stuff. Mm-hmm. He's got a show every weekend where he talks about this stuff. But we're looking at doing a once-a-month show where we discuss what happened that month with Trump. But instead of going at it with
but we want to go in it looking more at policy and how it's going to affect the country, and have a little discussion about that, and try to put our feelings on whether or not we like Trump aside.
Gotcha.
And we want to try to do that. So I know I'm small right now. I'm only at 120 subs last I checked, but hoping to set it up so that as I grow and stuff like that, and throughout the rest of the presidency, somebody's got something they can look at so they can hear a discussion on what's going on, and they don't have to hear every media outlet saying Trump's wrong and then Fox News saying he's right and not knowing which one to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, if the chat, unless the chat has a couple questions, I think we can go ahead and end it here in a couple minutes.
I'm not seeing any here, and I do need to go anyway. So, if you don't mind, yeah, why don't we go ahead and call it here? And thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for stopping by. Give me 1 second after I end the broadcast. I did got one question, but
sure.
Thank you everybody for. But anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Share the stream with your friends if they want to hear our side of what we believe on this memo, and have a good day.